My body, my choice. You can't demand anything from me, Amanda said, her voice cold as ice as she walked away from me in our bedroom. The words hit me like a physical punch, leaving me standing there in the dress shirt I had carefully chosen for our 6-week wedding anniversary dinner. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of marriage, and my wife hadn't touched me once. His name is Jason Mitchell, and at 32, I thought I had found my fairy tale ending when Amanda Richardson accepted his marriage proposal last spring in Denver, Colorado. The wedding had been everything I dreamed of, a beautiful ceremony at the prestigious Mountain Country Club, surrounded by friends and family who celebrated what they believed to be the beginning of my happily ever after. But as I stood there in our bedroom that night, watching my wife stiff back as she pretended to fiddle with her phone, I realized that something was terribly, devastatingly wrong. "Amanda, we're married," I whispered, my voice almost inaudible. "I'm his husband. I just want to understand why you don't even want to hold his hand, let alone—" "Don't finish that sentence," she said sharply, finally turning to face me. His blue eyes, which had once been warm and loving during our courtship, now showed nothing but irritation. "I told you that my body belongs to me. Marriage doesn't give you ownership of him. You need to respect my boundaries." The word boundaries sounded like a slap in the face. During our 8 months of dating, Amanda had been affectionate, even romantic. She would snuggle up to me during movies, kiss me goodnight after dates, and hold my hand when we walked through Washington Park. But the moment we returned from our honeymoon in Aspen, a honeymoon where she claimed exhaustion every night, everything changed. It was as if a switch had been flipped, transforming the woman I married into a stranger who cringed whenever I approached her. "That's not normal," I said, my voice rising. "Married couples are intimate. They share a bed. He touches her. Normal," Amanda laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about normal? Normal is respecting his partner's choices. Normal is not pressuring someone into physical contact they don't want." I stared at her, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. Her words were technically correct. Consent mattered. Boundaries mattered. But something felt deeply wrong about the way she used these concepts as weapons against his own husband. The Amanda who had courted me, who whispered sweet words about our future together, who seemed desperate to marry me, had completely disappeared. When she stormed out of the room, leaving me alone with my confusion and growing suspicion, I made a decision that would change everything. Something was very wrong with my marriage, and I was going to find out what it was. The next morning, I sat at our kitchen table, staring at my untouched coffee while Amanda moved around the kitchen with mechanical precision. She had always been organized, but lately her routines seemed almost obsessive. She checked her phone constantly, left to take calls, and developed a habit of disappearing for hours without explanation. "I'm visiting my sister in Phoenix this weekend," I announced, watching her reaction carefully. Amanda's hand froze on her coffee cup for just a moment before she nodded. "Sounds nice. How long are you going to be gone?" "Just the weekend." "Why are you going to miss me?" I asked, testing the waters. She shrugged without looking at me. "I'll manage." Her casual dismissal of my absence should have hurt, but instead it confirmed what I had been suspecting. Amanda seemed relieved whenever he left the house. During our relationship, she hated it when business trips separated us, even for a day. Now, she practically encouraged my absence. I studied his profile as she scrolled through her phone. Amanda was undeniably beautiful, tall with thick blonde hair and those striking blue eyes that first caught my attention in a downtown coffee shop. She worked as a marketing consultant, or at least that's what she said, although I had never met any of his colleagues or clients. When I asked about his work, she gave vague answers about confidentiality and client privacy. "Amanda," I said carefully, "I've been thinking we should see a marriage counselor. This distance between us isn't healthy." His head snapped up, and for a moment I saw something flash in her eyes. Panic, perhaps, or fear. But it disappeared so quickly that I wondered if I had imagined it. "We don't need counseling," she said firmly. "We just need time to adjust to married life. Not everyone gets into the perfect rhythm right away." "It's been 6 weeks," I reminded her. 6 weeks is nothing in the scope of a lifetime together," she, her voice sounding rehearsed, replied. But her voice sounded rehearsed, as if she had practiced that response, I added. That afternoon, after Amanda left for what she said was a client meeting, I did something I never imagined I would do. I searched through her things, not out of jealousy, but out of a growing conviction that the woman I married was keeping secrets from me. If you're enjoying this story of betrayal and shocking discoveries, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see how this investigation revealed secrets I never would have imagined. Because what I found that afternoon would change my life forever. His home office was meticulously organized, almost suspiciously so. The desk drawers contained only basic office supplies. His file cabinet held generic marketing documents, and his computer was password protected. But just as I was about to give up, I noticed something strange. In the trash can, partially hidden under other papers, was a receipt from a flower shop in Las Vegas. The date was 3 weeks ago, when Amanda claimed to be at a marketing conference in Salt Lake City. The receipt was for a dozen red roses, and written on the back, in Amanda's handwriting, was a phone number with a Nevada area code. My hands trembled as I photographed the receipt with my cell phone. Whatever Amanda was hiding, I was going to find out. That night, I sat in my car outside the building where Amanda claimed to work, watching through the lobby windows. I had called his supposed workplace earlier, asking to speak to Amanda Richardson, only to be told that no one by that name was employed there. The security guard I spoke to was polite but firm. He had worked there for 5 years and had never heard of Amanda. When Amanda's car pulled into the parking lot at 6 p.m., I slumped down in my seat, watching as she remained in the vehicle for several minutes, talking animatedly on the phone. Even from a distance, I could see that his body language was completely different from the cold, distant woman she had become at home. She was smiling, laughing, even gesturing with her free hand as if she were having the most wonderful conversation of her life. After 20 minutes, she ended the call and entered the building, not to an office, but to the coffee shop on the ground floor. She ordered a drink and sat down at a corner table, taking out his laptop. For the next hour, she appeared to be working, but something about the scene seemed staged, performative. When she finally left, she threw away what appeared to be fake documents and drove home. I followed at a safe distance, my mind racing. The woman I married was not who she said she was. The question was, what was she hiding? And why had she married me? When I got home 10 minutes after her, Amanda was already in the shower. I took the opportunity to examine his cell phone, which he had left charging on the nightstand. It was locked, but I remembered seeing her type in the password once, our wedding date. My heart was pounding as I typed in the numbers, and miraculously, the phone unlocked. What I found made my blood run cold. Text messages with someone named Trevor, full of intimate exchanges and declarations of love. Photos of Amanda with a man I didn't recognize, both wearing wedding rings, standing in front of what looked like a registry office. The most recent message, sent a few hours ago, read, "Missing you, love. I can't wait to see you this weekend. This whole situation is almost over." The shower was still running when I forwarded the most compromising photos and messages to his own phone, then carefully put Amanda's phone back where I found it. My hands were shaking so much that I could barely hold his own phone as I looked at the evidence of what appeared to be Amanda's double life. When Amanda emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel and humming softly, I was sitting on the bed pretending to read a magazine. She seemed genuinely happy for the first time in weeks. And now I understood why. He was living 2 lives, and apparently her life with me was the one she wanted to end. "I think I'm going to bed early tonight," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "Good idea," Amanda replied. And I didn't miss the relief in her voice. "Sweet dreams, Jason." As I lay in the dark, listening to her steady breathing beside me, I made a decision that would shatter both of our lives. Tomorrow, I would contact a lawyer and find out exactly who I had married. Patricia Henley's law office was in downtown Denver, occupying the 15th floor of a gleaming skyscraper with panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains. I chose Patricia specifically for her reputation in complex divorce cases. But as I sat across from his mahogany desk, sharing the evidence I had gathered, I realized I was dealing with something much more sinister than a simple marital crisis. "Jason," Patricia said, her voice grave as she studied the photos on my phone. "What you're showing me suggests potential bigamy. This isn't just grounds for divorce. It could be criminal." The word bigamy hit me like a physical blow. I suspected an affair, perhaps even that Amanda had married him for financial reasons, but the possibility that she was already married to someone else had never crossed my mind. "That's impossible," I whispered. "We have a marriage certificate. We were married by a licensed official at the country club. There were over 200 witnesses." Patricia nodded grimly. "His marriage is legally valid on his end, which makes Amanda's situation extremely problematic if she is already married to someone else. Bigamy is a felony in Colorado, punishable by up to 6 years in prison. She picked up her phone. I'm going to recommend that we hire a private investigator immediately. We need to determine if this Trevor is, in fact, his wife Amanda, and if so, when and where they were married. Within a few hours, I found myself in the office of Detective Michael Torres, a former police officer turned private investigator specializing in matrimonial fraud cases. He was a compact man in his 50s with piercing eyes and a direct manner that immediately put me at ease. I've seen cases like this before, he said, taking notes as I recounted my story. The pattern is usually the same. The perpetrator researches wealthy targets, courts them quickly, rushes into marriage, and then tries to access their finances before disappearing. The lack of intimacy is a red flag. Many of these fraudsters avoid physical contact because it complicates his exit strategy. But Amanda seemed so genuine when we were dating, I protested. She was romantic, attentive. She seemed to really care about me. Detective Torres looked at me with something resembling sympathy. These people are skilled manipulators, Jason. They research their targets extensively, learn his interests, his background, his vulnerabilities. They become who they think you want them to be. He pulled out a contract. I need you to understand that what we may discover could be very painful. Are you prepared for the possibility that everything about his relationship has been a lie? I thought about the last 6 weeks of confusion and rejection. About the cold stranger sharing his bed, about the phone calls and mysterious absences. Whatever the truth was, it couldn't be worse than the uncertainty I was living with. I need to know, I said firmly. Whatever the cost. Detective Torres nodded and began to outline his investigation plan. He would start by conducting extensive checks on Amanda Richardson, searching for marriage records in various states and trying to identify and locate Trevor. He would also investigate Amanda's alleged employment and financial history. One more thing, he said, handing me a small tape recorder. If Amanda makes any admissions or threats, we need to record them. Colorado allows one-party recording, so you can legally record conversations you participate in without her knowledge. As I left the detective's office, the small tape recorder weighed heavily in my wallet. I was about to embark on an investigation that would either save my marriage or destroy it completely. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of the situation instead of being a passive victim of Amanda's manipulations. Because if I found out that his wife was really living a lie, she would pay for every second of pain he had caused me. That evening, I watched Amanda across the dinner table, studying his face for any sign of the woman I thought I had fallen in love with. She seemed relaxed, almost cheerful, making small talk about her day while he mechanically ate his pasta. Every smile, every casual comment, every moment of apparent normality now seemed like an elaborate performance designed to deceive him. When she excused herself to take a call in his office, I turned on the recorder and followed her, positioning myself outside the door. I know, honey. I miss her too, Amanda's voice drifted through the thin office door, tender and loving in a way I hadn't heard since our honeymoon. This whole situation is more complicated than we expected, but I promise it will be over soon. I pressed myself closer to the door, my heart pounding as I listened to what was clearly an intimate conversation with another man. No, he doesn't suspect anything, Amanda continued. In fact, he's making it easier by pulling away. I think he's planning to file for divorce, which would solve all our problems. The casual cruelty in her voice made my stomach churn. She was talking about me as if I were nothing more than a business transaction. A problem to be solved. The prenup was a stroke of genius, she continued. He was so in love he barely read it. If he files for divorce within the first year, he gets nothing, but I get half of any assets he brought into the marriage. That includes the trust fund his grandmother left him. I had to hold onto the doorframe to keep from collapsing. The prenuptial agreement Amanda had insisted on, claiming it would protect both of our interests, was actually designed to rob me. She had manipulated him into signing away his own inheritance. I love you too, Trevor, Amanda said, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Tell me about his day. How was work? For the next 10 minutes, I listened to Amanda have the kind of loving, attentive conversation I had desperately wanted from her. She asked about Trevor's job as a financial advisor in Las Vegas, recalled details about his colleagues, made plans for their weekend together. She was everything to him that she refused to be to me. When she finally ended the call, I crept back into the living room and turned off the recorder, my hands shaking as I processed what I had just discovered. Amanda hadn't just married me while she was already married to someone else. She had orchestrated an elaborate fraud designed to steal my inheritance. The next morning, while Amanda was supposedly at work, Detective Torres called with his preliminary findings. "I have good news and bad news," he said. "The bad news is that Amanda Richardson married Trevor Caldwell in Las Vegas 8 months ago, 2 months before she proposed to you. Her marriage is completely legal and documented." My worst fears were confirmed, but Detective Torres continued, "The good news is that this makes his case straightforward. Amanda committed bigamy when she married him, and the evidence he recorded last night proves intent to commit matrimonial fraud. We have enough to file criminal charges and void his prenuptial agreement based on fraud." "What happens now?" I asked, feeling strangely calm despite the magnitude of what I had discovered. "Now we set a trap," Detective Torres said. "Based on the conversation you recorded, Amanda is planning to access his trust fund soon. We need to catch her in the act. Are you willing to let this continue a little longer to gather more evidence?" I thought about her, a woman who had won me over with romantic gestures and promises of eternity, who turned out to be a criminal using me for my money while loving someone else. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. But beneath the pain was something harder and more determined. "Yes," I said firmly. "Let's get that bitch." Detective Torres had been thorough in setting up the surveillance, but what he discovered the following week exceeded even his expectations. Amanda wasn't just a bigamist. She was part of a larger pattern of matrimonial fraud that had been going on for years. "We've identified at least 3 other women in different states who married men matching Trevor's description," Detective Torres explained during our meeting at Patricia's office. "Same methodology. Speed dating, quick marriage, access to finances, then disappearance. We believe Trevor and Amanda work as a team." The surveillance photos she showed me were devastating. Trevor and Amanda at a dinner in Las Vegas, holding hands and laughing. Trevor entering and leaving an apartment that was clearly his shared home. Even more compromising were photos of her and his at a bank where Amanda waited in the car while Trevor went inside with what appeared to be financial documents. "He's using her marriage certificate and forged documents to establish himself as his legal husband with financial institutions," Patricia explained. "The plan seems to be to drain her accounts and then file for divorce under the prenuptial agreement, claiming that she was unfaithful or abandoned the marriage." "How is that possible?" I asked. "I would have noticed money missing from my accounts." Detective Torres pulled out another folder. He was more sophisticated than that. He opened new accounts using his social security number and marriage certificate, then applied for lines of credit against her trust fund. He hasn't touched his existing accounts yet because that would trigger immediate alerts. But he created a shadowy financial identity that he can drain all at once. The scope of the deception was breathtaking. Trevor had been planning this for months, possibly even before we met. Every romantic gesture, every declaration of love, every moment of apparent happiness had been calculated to manipulate him into the perfect position to be robbed. "There's one more thing," Detective Torres said, her expression grim. "Amanda isn't just your wife, she's your sister." The room spun around me. "What?" "Amanda Wilson was born Amanda Caldwell. He's been running marriage fraud schemes together for at least 5 years. She provides legitimacy to his operations by playing the role of the devoted wife at home while he targets wealthy women in other states." I felt physically sick. The intimate phone calls I had listened to, the declarations of love, the romantic photos, it was all part of an incestuous criminal partnership that made my skin crawl. Patricia leaned forward. "Jason, we have enough evidence to destroy them both. Trevor will face federal charges for mail fraud, wire fraud, bigamy, and identity theft. Amanda will be charged as an accomplice, but we need to catch them in the act of actually accessing his funds. How do we do that?" Detective Torres smiled grimly. "We give them what they want. You'll file for divorce exactly as Trevor expects, but instead of using his prenup to rob you, we'll use it to trap him." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, playing the role of the heartbroken husband who just wanted out of the marriage. Trevor would feel confident that his plan was working and would move quickly to access the financial accounts he had set up. Federal agents would be waiting for him. Are you ready for this? Patricia asked. Once we set this in motion, there's no turning back. Trevor will be arrested, and the truth about his marriage will become public record. I thought about the last 2 months of confusion and rejection, about the elaborate lies and manipulation, about the trust fund my grandmother had left me being used as bait in a criminal scheme. I'm ready, he said. Let's end this charade once and for all. That evening, I sat on the couch in our living room, watching Amanda watch television with that relaxed expression he now recognized as the mask of a skilled criminal. She seemed so normal, so innocent, that for a moment I almost doubted the evidence I had seen. But then she laughed at something on TV, the same laugh I had loved during our courtship, and I realized how completely I had been deceived. The woman sitting next to me was a stranger who had studied her tastes, her vulnerabilities, and her weaknesses in order to manipulate her perfectly. Every kiss, every hug, every I love you had been part of a calculated performance. When she went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, I grabbed my phone and typed a message to Detective Torres, "I'm ready to start tomorrow." Her reply came immediately, "Perfect. Remember, from now on you're playing the role of the devastated husband who just wants the pain to end. Let her think he won." I watched Amanda return from the kitchen, her expression carefully neutral. Tomorrow, I would give her exactly what she thought she wanted. But this time, I would be the one controlling the game. And when Trevor finally realized he had fallen into a trap, it would be too late to escape the consequences of years of manipulation and fraud. True justice was about to begin. The Denver County Courthouse was bustling with activity the morning I filed for divorce, but I felt strangely calm as I climbed the steps with Patricia by my side. Detective Torres had positioned himself across the street, ready to alert the federal agents as soon as Trevor took the bait. I had served Amanda with the divorce papers the night before, playing the role of the devastated husband who could no longer cope with the distance in our marriage. His reaction was perfect. Surprise, pain, and then resigned acceptance that made my skin crawl with her falseness. "I'm sorry it came to this," she had said, pulling me into what I now recognized as a calculated hug. "I know I wasn't the wife he deserved. Maybe some time apart will help us figure out what we really want." The recorder in my pocket captured every lying word. "It's done," Patricia said, handing me copies of the divorce papers. "According to Colorado law, she has 30 days to respond. But something tells me she won't get the chance." My phone vibrated with a message from Detective Torres. "He's on the move. Entered First National Bank downtown with Amanda. Federal agents in position." My heart raced as I imagined Trevor finally making his move, probably feeling confident that his plan had worked perfectly. He thought he was about to walk away with my inheritance, while leaving me with nothing but a fraudulent prenuptial agreement and a broken heart. The phone vibrated again. Delivery complete. Both targets in custody. "You can go home, Jason. It's over." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. The man who had manipulated and lied to me, who planned to steal from me and disappear, was finally facing the consequences of his crimes. 2 weeks later, during the arraignment hearing in federal court, I sat in the gallery watching Trevor and Amanda being led into the courtroom in orange jumpsuits and handcuffs. Trevor's confident composure had completely crumbled. His face was pale, his hands were shaking, and he kept looking around the room as if he couldn't believe where he had ended up. The defendants, Trevor James Caldwell and Amanda Marie Caldwell, are charged with conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and bigamy, the prosecutor announced. The government alleges that the defendants operated a criminal enterprise targeting wealthy women for fraudulent marriages intended to steal his assets. When Trevor's eyes met mine across the courtroom, I saw the exact moment he realized I had known about his scheme all along. The shock on her face was quickly replaced by something closer to panic as the full weight of her situation hit her. "Your Honor," Trevor's appointed attorney said, "my client maintains her innocence and requests consideration for bail." The prosecutor immediately stood up. "Your Honor, Mr. Caldwell poses a flight risk who has demonstrated a pattern of creating false identities and fraudulent financial relationships. The government requests that she be held without bail." Amanda sat beside his side, tears streaming down her face as she realized her criminal partnership with him was over. The intimate phone calls, the romantic photographs, the elaborate deception that had been his livelihood. Now it was all evidence, proof of a disturbing criminal conspiracy that would put them in prison for years. The judge's voice was stern as he denied bail for both defendants. The evidence presented suggests a sophisticated criminal enterprise that poses a continuing danger to the community. Both defendants will remain in custody pending trial. As the police led Trevor away, he looked at me one last time, his face a mask of defeat and disbelief that his perfect plan had destroyed him completely. Over the next few months, I worked closely with federal prosecutors, providing evidence and testifying about the elaborate scheme that had almost cost me everything. The investigation revealed the true extent of his operations. Trevor and Amanda were not just opportunistic criminals, but sophisticated operators of a network that had victimized women across 6 states over 5 years. Every relationship, every marriage, every declaration of love had been part of a cold, calculated machine designed to drain bank accounts and destroy lives. The evidence I gathered, especially the recordings of intimate phone conversations between Trevor and Amanda, became central pieces of the government's case. It showed not only the incestuous nature of her criminal partnership, but also the complete contempt she had for her victims. The trial was a media spectacle that exposed every sordid detail of his scheme. Other victims came forward, encouraged by my case to seek justice for their own experiences with the siblings' manipulative schemes. Women from Oregon, Arizona, Florida, and Texas told similar stories of whirlwind romances, rushed marriages, and devastating financial losses. If these stories of justice and revenge inspire him as much as they inspired me during my journey, be sure to subscribe to the channel to see more accounts of people who refused to be victims and fought for her truths. Because believe me, justice may be slow, but when it finally arrives, it is absolutely devastating for those who deserve it. Federal prosecutor Samantha Rodriguez built such a solid case that the defense attorneys quickly shifted from total denial to plea bargaining. But it was too late to minimize the damage. The evidence was overwhelming. The media had made Trevor and Amanda nationally notorious, and the public was thirsty for justice. Throughout the process, I maintained my composure. I did not seek emotional revenge or dramatic confrontations. Instead, I methodically collaborated with the authorities, ensuring that every crime was documented, every victim was heard, and every aspect of his criminal operation was exposed. Sentencing was approaching, and I knew Trevor and Amanda would face years behind bars. But more important than his punishment was the fact that her ability to manipulate and victimize innocent women had been permanently destroyed. They would never again be able to use love as a weapon, marriage as a tool for fraud, or trust as a means of theft. As I prepared to testify at the sentencing hearing, I reflected on the months since I had discovered the truth about my wife. The pain of betrayal had been replaced by something stronger, the satisfaction of knowing that I had turned my victimization into protection for countless other women. Trevor had tried to destroy me, but instead, he had triggered his own complete and irreversible ruin. The sentencing hearing was held 2 weeks later in federal court, and I sat in the gallery watching Trevor and Amanda be led into the courtroom in orange jumpsuits and handcuffs. Trevor's confident composure had completely collapsed. His face was pale, his hands were shaking, and he kept looking around the room as if he couldn't believe where he had ended up. But I wanted more than just to see them convicted. I wanted Trevor to know exactly how he had been defeated. During the recess, I managed to get a few minutes alone with him in the conference room, supervised by federal agents. "Jason," he said, her voice a desperate whisper. "You have to understand, it was never personal." "It wasn't personal," I repeated, leaning forward. "You married me to steal my inheritance. His sister pretended to love me for months. You planned to destroy my life." Trevor lowered his head. "We needed the money. Amanda was sick and—" "Stop," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "Don't lie to me now." That's when I pulled out my phone and played the recording I had made weeks earlier. Her own voice filled the room. The prenup was a stroke of genius. He was so in love he barely read it. If he files for divorce within the first year, he gets nothing, but I get half of any assets she brought into the marriage. Trevor froze. "How did you get this?" I finished. "Because unlike you, I didn't underestimate my opponent. While you thought you were manipulating him, I was building a federal case against you both." Her hands began to shake violently. "You don't understand. We've been doing this for years. We're professionals." "You were professionals," I corrected, "until you met someone who really studied him." I pulled out a folder I had prepared specifically for this moment. Want to know how I found out everything? It started with that flower receipt from Las Vegas. You were careless. But then I did something that apparently no one of his other victims did. I investigated. Trevor stared at the folder with growing horror. I hired the best private investigator in Denver. We didn't just check his background, Trevor, we mapped his entire operation. We know about Jessica in Portland, about Margaret in Phoenix, about all the women you've destroyed in the last 5 years. Every fraudulent marriage, every drained bank account, every shattered life. All documented, all evidenced. I opened the folder and spread photographs across the table. Images of Trevor and Amanda in other states, with other identities, using other names. You thought you were smart using different identities, but you left an unmistakable digital trail. Trevor examined the photos, her face growing paler with each image. That's impossible. We were careful. You were amateurs, I said. And you know what your stupidest mistake was? Those romantic calls between siblings that I recorded. When the prosecutors play those in court, the jury will be disgusted. Not only did you lose, but you became a case study on how not to commit matrimonial fraud. The door opened and Amanda was brought in, his handcuffs clinking. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. Jason, please. You have to help us. We're family now. His audacity momentarily left me speechless. Family. I repeated. You forged documents using his social security number. You created fake bank accounts in his name. You planned to bankrupt him and disappear. But you stopped that, Amanda whispered. No one was really hurt. No one got hurt. I pulled out another folder, this one even thicker. Margaret Thompson from Phoenix attempted suicide after you stole the inheritance left to his parents. Jessica Williams in Portland lost her family home because she trusted you. Diane Foster in Miami is still paying off debts you created in her name. 5 years, 17 victims, $2,400,000 stolen. Amanda began to sob, but Trevor was still trying to maintain some dignity. How did you get all this information? Because unlike you, I don't work alone, he said. When the FBI discovered the pattern, other victims began to come forward. You were so systematic that it was easy to connect the dots. And you know what the best part is? Every woman you victimized will get his money back. The government recovered almost everything from the hiding places you thought were safe. Trevor finally broke down. How did you know about the offshore accounts? We never mentioned that to anyone. I smiled for the first time in months. Because you made a fundamental mistake. You assumed I was just another easy target. But I'm not just a rich man, Trevor. I'm a forensic accountant specializing in financial crimes. Finding hidden money is literally his profession. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the exact moment when they realized the complete irony of her situation. They had targeted the very person with the skills necessary to destroy them. Throughout our marriage, while you thought you were deceiving me, I was building a complete profile of your criminal operations. Every call I recorded, every document I photographed, every move I tracked. It wasn't luck, it was professional expertise applied to his personal situation. Amanda looked at me with a mixture of fear and admiration. You studied us like lab specimens. Exactly, he confirmed. And you know what I discovered? You're not criminal geniuses. You're opportunistic predators who finally found prey that knows how to hunt back. The federal agents signaled that time was up. As Trevor and Amanda were led back to their cells, Trevor shouted one last question. Why didn't you expose us right away? Why all this elaboration? I paused at the door and turned to face him one last time. Because quick exposure would have resulted in lesser sentences. I wanted complete justice not just for myself, but for every woman you destroyed. I wanted to make sure you could never do this to anyone else. Her faces contorted in despair as she realized they had not only been defeated, but completely annihilated by someone they had tried to victimize. The real twist wasn't that I had uncovered his scheme. It was that he had targeted the one person in the entire world with the perfect skills to not only survive the attack, but turn it into her complete and irreversible destruction. At the sentencing hearing, the federal judge got straight to the point. Trevor James Caldwell, his sentence is 12 years in federal prison for marriage fraud, bigamy, and criminal conspiracy. Amanda Marie Caldwell, 8 years on the same charges. The gavel echoed in the crowded courtroom as reporters captured every moment of the criminal siblings' final downfall. Trevor looked at me one last time before being led away in handcuffs, his eyes showing a belated understanding that he had chosen the wrong target. I felt no pleasure at her conviction, but rather a deep satisfaction knowing that she would never again be able to destroy other families as he had nearly destroyed mine. The ensuing investigation revealed the true extent of their operations. 17 victims in 6 states, $2.4 million stolen through fraudulent marriages that left a woman financially and emotionally devastated. Each of them had his assets recovered thanks to the evidence I collected. Margaret Thompson called me in tears 3 months later, saying that for the first time in 2 years he had slept through the night without nightmares. Jessica Williams sent a letter thanking me for returning not only his money, but her faith that justice still existed. Those conversations were worth more than any personal revenge. The case became a legal landmark, being used in FBI training on marriage fraud. The press called me the man who dismantled a criminal empire, but the truth is simpler. I was just someone who refused to be a silent victim and used her professional skills to protect others. My forensic consulting business grew exponentially after the case was publicized. Ironically, Trevor's attempt to destroy me financially ended up making me one of the most sought-after investigators in the country. I specialized in matrimonial fraud cases, helping other victims recover her lives and assets. A year later, I was reviewing contracts in my new office when Patricia called. "Jason, I just got an interesting call. A woman in Seattle suspects his wife is pulling the same scam Trevor pulled on you. Want the case?" I smiled as I opened my calendar. "Sure. Let's save another family." The most profound transformation was not professional, but personal. I learned that real strength doesn't come from avoiding being deceived, but from how you react when you discover the deception. Trevor thought he had chosen an easy victim, a naive romantic with money. Instead, he found an adversary who turned his own expertise into a weapon of justice. Throughout the process, I kept my dignity and integrity intact. I did not seek emotional revenge or personal humiliation. I simply used the legal system meticulously to ensure that Trevor and Amanda faced the consequences of their choices. The real victory was protecting future victims while reclaiming his own life. If you were inspired by this story of how to turn betrayal into triumph, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more stories of people who refused to accept injustice and fought for her truths. Today, 5 years later, Trevor is still in federal prison, Amanda is serving her sentence, and me? Well, I just opened my 3rd office, this time in Los Angeles, specializing in protecting people from predators like those who almost destroyed my life. The best revenge, after all, is to live well and ensure that others can too.